Wes Cravens New Nightmare, the movie that brought back Nancy and brought Freddy into the real world. Hey guys, my name's Craig and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I am going to be reviewing Wes Cravens New Nightmare. Now, if this is your first time here, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, so we've had two really weak Elm Street films recently, and this is the time to really smash it out of the park, and guys, they really did. I absolutely love Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I think it's such an underrated horror movie. It's creative in its storytelling and also in the nightmares. I mean, it's fantastic. Robert Englund is back and Freddy, he is darker than ever. So this movie is slightly different to all of the other Elm Street movies because in this one, we are actually following actress Heather Langenkamp's life rather than following the character Nancy's life, at least for the first half of the movie. The concept for this movie is that Freddy is now affecting the actors and actresses' lives in the real world, mainly Heather's, and the only way to stop Freddy is to make another movie. So let's start things off with some of the things that I like about this movie. I'm going to kick it off with the nightmares. Now, the nightmares in this movie fills me with nostalgia. It takes me back to the original Freddy films. Everything from like Freddy's hand coming out of the bed to Freddy's tongue coming out of the telephone. It's great. We get a really good kill scene with babysitter Julie, which is actually a callback to Tina's death in Nightmare 1. Because Julie, she's killed in the exact same way. I mean, she's dragged up the ceiling, and what I liked about this version is that we actually got to see Freddy dragging Julie all around the room, whereas Freddy was totally invisible in Nightmare 1. Now, I just mentioned Freddy's hands coming out of the bed while Heather or Nancy is asleep, which I just absolutely love. It brings back that fear of beds, you know? Remember when, like, you know, Glenn was being pulled, sucked into the bed? It brings it all back to you. There are some great scenes between Nancy and Freddy in this movie, and Nancy, I reckon, is at her most strongest. I mean, she kind of has to be because Freddy is also stronger and darker. I love the final showdown scene where Nancy and Dylan, you know, they enter Freddy's, you know, chamber. And there are some really disturbing moments, like the bit where Freddy opens up his mouth to try and eat and swallow Dylan whole. That is just nightmare feel right there. You got Freddy's massive tongue making another appearance when he ends up wrapping it around Nancy to stop her from getting away. You've also got Freddy's long arm when, you know, he's trying to grab Dylan from inside that cooker thing. This really is the stuff of nightmares and I flippin' love it. Heather's husband Chase has a pretty gruesome death scene when Freddy's glove comes out of the car seat from between his legs and straight into his body, completely ripping open his chest and pretty much killing him instantly. Now, when Heather goes to see his body in the morgue, I just loved the whole atmosphere of this scene as she's walking down the corridor with the chilling music, and you can hear some, you know, woman screaming in the distance somewhere who's clearly viewing someone's dead body in another part of the morgue. In fact, the whole atmosphere and music in this movie is spot on. It's dramatic, it's dark, it's chilling in certain parts. Everything that is needed for a Freddy movie. As we've seen in certain previous sequels, if you don't get the music right, then the movie can pretty much flop straight away. That's just my opinion, because the music is definitely key in an Elm Street movie. Little Dylan does a really good job in the movie. I mean, there are times when he is really creepy, especially when he puts on his little Freddy Krueger voice. I mean, at one stage I was wondering what was happening to him, especially when he was like having his little fits and going, "Never sleep again." I was honestly thinking that Freddy was like trying to possess him at one point. In the movie, there are loads of original faces that make an appearance, including on-screen Nancy's dad, who just slips back into the role perfectly. You also have Robert Englund playing himself at certain points, and you've also got Robert Shea playing himself, and even the legend Wes Craven pops up in this movie. This is such a great film for dedicated Nightmare fans, with so many little Easter eggs hidden in the background. In this scene here, you can clearly see the face morph thing that was used in Nightmare 5 when Freddy was coming out of Alice's face. So let's talk about some little criticisms of the movie. I mean, there aren't that many kill scenes. I think apart from Chase and babysitter Julie, there aren't really any other kill scenes. Oh, I think those 2 special effect guys do die, but it's not really confirmed. But if you're someone who loves a lot of kill scenes, then you may not be a huge fan of this movie. Also, it does take a little while for this movie to really get going, and what I mean by that is that Freddy does take a while to really kick into action. I mean, you got the first half of the movie where it does mainly focus on Heather, where she's having like a crazy fan ringing her, and we do get little snippets of Freddy stories here and there, and it's, you know, it does bubble away quite nicely. In fact, there's actually a really creepy scene during Chase's funeral where Freddy ends up pulling Dylan into the coffin, which always gave me the creeps. I mean, the real good stuff doesn't happen until, you know, just after the halfway mark. But for me personally, I love the build-up. I'm a massive Nightmare fan anyway, so I'm also a huge fan of Heather, aka Nancy, so I'm totally fine with the story building arc in this movie. I have to mention the hospital scenes with Dr. Hefner because these scenes are great. Dr. Hefner thinks that Dylan is suffering with some form of psychosis, and she is basically blaming Heather and the Nightmare movies that she starred in. And there's a great nightmare scene where Dr. Hefner, she actually turns into Freddy for just a moment, and it really does keep you on the edge of your seat, which is what you want, you know? Once this movie gets going, there is no stopping it, and it really does turn into this wild ride. I'm not a massive fan of Freddy's makeup in this movie. His whole face kind of looks plasticky latex rather than actual burns. It's not as good as the other Elm Street movies, I do have to admit, but I'm always happy to overlook it as, you know, it's such a good movie. I mean, after the last movie, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, a movie I absolutely despise, I am just so glad that they brought Freddy back and showed us what a real Nightmare on Elm Street film should be like. I honestly think that this is one of my favorite sequels, along with Dream Warriors, and as I said, it is a different concept compared to the other Elm Street films, but it does a brilliant job in my opinion. It does rehash a few scenes from the original Nightmare, like for example, Julie's death scene and, you know, the Freddy tongue coming out of the phone. But it does bring a lot of new things too, like, you know, the moment where Freddy tries to eat Dylan. Okay then, well, that's all of my thoughts on the movie. Now let's hear some of your thoughts. Do we have any fans of Wes Cravens New Nightmare watching today? If we do, then let me know in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well, thank you all for watching today's video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe out there, and I will see you all again very soon.